From Kern Government Television, welcome to this week's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting. Originating from the Kern County Administrative Center, located at 1115 Truxtun Avenue in Bakersfield, California. Grounded in ideas, energy, and innovation, Kern County's vision is to be a driving force for the world's fifth largest economy, and our mission is to exceed expectations of the communities we serve, changing the way they feel about government, those who manage it, and the services it provides. Today's Board of Supervisors meeting will convene momentarily.
Okay, Board to reconvene. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Supervisor Peters?
Here.
Supervisor Perlier?
Here.
Supervisor Flores?
Here.
Supervisor Couch?
Here.
Supervisor Perez?
Here.
Good morning and welcome to the Tuesday, February 10th, 9 a.m. meeting of the Kern County Board of Supervisors. We'll begin today's meeting with a flag salute led by a member of our Kern County Elections Division. I apologize if I get the last name wrong, but it's U.S. Army Private Laura Niederauer. Laura was born in Bakersfield, California, and grew up living in Central Oregon and California. She graduated from East Bakersfield High School in 1986 and enlisted in the U.S. Army in 1989. As the third generation to serve, her experience presents a different side of military duties. Her active duty service was brief and came to an end during a training exercise. Although her disability status prevented further active duty, at that time she was also a military spouse, which afforded her the opportunity to continue working on post and becoming heavily involved in programs to help returning Desert Storm combat veterans and their spouses. Programs included cultural and social education for spouses not familiar with Western customs, helping others to navigate being a disabled veteran, as well as helping other military spouses learn how to maintain a household on their own. These interactions over the years were both rewarding and enriching experiences. A few years after returning to Bakersfield, she was honored to marry a man from one of Kern County's historic families and is the mother of 2 grown sons. She applied her skills to a successful career in family law and earned her degree in philosophy from CSUB in 2014, which coincidentally is the same year that her eldest son's freshman year of college, which was a fun and unique experience as a parent. Laura's younger son is currently representing the 4th generation of service members in her family. As a recent Blue Star mother, she carries a deeply personal understanding that every member of our armed forces serves and sacrifices so that others may live in freedom. Laura, we thank you so much for your family's service to our country and to our community and for being here today to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Following the pledge, I would ask that you all please remain standing for a moment of prayer, silence, or meditation, whichever you prefer.
Salute. Pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you again, Laura. Next, I would like to call on Nick Cullen, our Director of Animal Services, to introduce the Pet of the Week. Thanks. Good morning, Nick. Who do we got here today?
Well, good morning, Chairman Peters and members of the board. Our board pet of the week is Beans.
Beans. I like
Miss
it.
Beans. Beans is still a puppy. She's small. She's not going to get much bigger than she is right now, but she's the sweetest dog. She's very friendly, and she's available for adoption right now at the Kern County Animal Shelter.
Very cool. How much is it to come down and adopt Beans?
Well, Beans is just $30 to adopt.
Perfect.
She comes with a license, a microchip. She's going to be spayed. She's going to have everything you need to be a responsible pet owner.
Outstanding. Well, she looks like she's pretty calm. I think $30 is that's a bargain anytime. So thanks for bringing her down, and good luck, Beans.
Good luck, Beans.
Okay, next we're going to begin by considering the consent agenda. All items listed with the CA above the items are considered to be routine and non-controversial by county staff. Consent items will be considered first and may be approved by one motion. If the public wishes to comment or ask questions regarding an item on consent, they may do so prior to a vote being taken. Members of the board may remove any items from the consent agenda, and they will be considered in listed sequence with an opportunity for any member of the public to address the board concerning the item before action is taken. Members of the public may also comment on any closed session items. At this time, I'll read the consent agenda item numbers, and that is items 1, 3, 4, 5, and 8 on page 2, items 9 through 15 on page 3, item 16 on page 4, items 20 and 21 on page 5, and lastly, items 22 through 29 on page 6. Would any members of the public like to speak regarding the consent agenda? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board for any comment or a motion.
Motion on consent.
Second.
Thank you. Please cast your votes.
Madam Clerk, my button isn't working. Oh, there it goes.
The motion is approved. All ayes.
Thank you. Our next item is item number 2, which will be proclaiming February 2026 as Safely Surrendered Baby Awareness Month in Kern County, and this will be presented by Supervisor Flores.
Okay, motion on item 2.
Second.
Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. All ayes.
Good morning, board and members of the public. It's a great day to proclaim a wonderful law that was passed. Unfortunately, yesterday, we saw the tragedy at Panama and H, where we lost a newborn, and again, without judgment, and the saying is no shame, no name, no blame. But what a terrible, sad event that took place yesterday. And this is why we're gathered here in unity to address these and save lives ultimately. We're here to talk about Safely Surrendered Baby Law. This responds to the increasing number of newborn infant deaths due to abandonment in unsafe locations. First created in 2001, the law's intent is to save lives of newborn infants at risk of abandonment, encourage parents and persons with lawful custody to safely surrender within 72 hours, no questions asked. Since 2006, Kern County has had 105 infants saved due to this law. In Kern County, a newborn can be safely surrendered at the hands of any hospital room or fire department. This coalition, under the coordination of DHS and Lito's leadership, works to educate Kern County and residents about this important law. To talk more about the coalition and the events of this month, I have Lito will say a few words. And on behalf of our Board of Supervisors, we're dedicating February 2026 as Safely Surrendered Baby Awareness Month in Kern County, signed by our Honorable Chairman, Philip Peters. And I'd like to present this to you, Lito, to your department, and for your life-saving work. All of you, you make us safer and better, and God bless you guys.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Thank you, Supervisor Flores, for that introduction. I appreciate it so much. Thank you to all of you for proclaiming February as Safe Surrender Baby Month. I'm joined here today by an illustrious group, and I want to introduce all of them. From DHS, we have Maria Bermudez, Limbanya Sandoval, and the Coalition Chair, Christy Torres. From the Bakersfield Pregnancy Center, we have Aaron Rogers. From Coenia Foster Care, we have Norma Rhodes. From Kern County Fire, we have Chief Aaron Duncan. From First Five, we have Kevin Bartle. And then from Kern County Public Health, we have Wanda Brown and Angela Bivens. And then we also have from the coalition, Maureen Kniffen and her son, Oliver, who is a safe surrender baby as well. He's the honorary member of the coalition. There you go. I want to thank this team for working tirelessly every month throughout the year, really working to spread the word, making presentations at various meetings throughout Kern County, whether it be city council meetings, collaborative meetings, just to continue to create that awareness. And unfortunately, as Supervisor Flores alluded to, we received some bad news yesterday where there was a child that was abandoned near a dumpster. That's very unfortunate. It's really something tragic to hear, but that really kind of puts fire and energy to this effort and initiative of continuing to spread the word and making sure everyone's aware of this important law. And it's because of instances like this that we remain vigilant in telling expecting parents that there are options. As opposed to abandoning your newborn and placing that baby in a dangerous situation, there are options. Since the law was adopted in 2006, the Department of Human Services has led this coalition, raising this awareness, incredibly important life-saving resource called the Safe Surrender Baby Law. So what is the Safe Surrender Baby Law? As Supervisor Flores alluded to, it is a law that allows expecting parents to make a decision to safely surrender their newborn within 3 days at a hospital or fire station, anywhere in Kern County. The goal is simple but profound: to provide a safe, legal, and compassionate alternative to abandoning a newborn. One of the most important aspects of this law is this promise of no shame, no blame, no names. When a surrendering parent obviously surrenders their newborn, they're not going to be prosecuted. They're not required to provide any personal information. And this protection is intentional. It's intentional because it removes the fear and creates a safe space for someone who may feel overwhelmed, scared, or out of options. The key message to the Safe Surrender Law is it's a safe alternative to abandonment. Before this law existed, abandonment too often resulted in tragic outcomes. Babies were left in unsafe situations, which normally ended in loss of life in those scenarios. This law was created to prevent that from happening. Since 2008, there have been 105 babies safely surrendered in Kern County. That is 105 lives saved. There was 2 babies saved last year alone. And these numbers don't talk about the future of these children's lives that were saved. In a broader context, prior to this adoption of this law, California was averaging in the high teens, 18 to 22 a year in terms of abandonment in babies. With this law, it's really reduced that number quite a bit, below 5. Quite simply, this law saves lives. The Safe Surrender Law is doing exactly what it's intended to do, reducing the number of babies being abandoned. But there's another side to this story, one that's just as powerful as a story of saving lives. It's a story of opportunity. Opportunity for a child to grow up in a loving and safe home where a family can come together through adoption, as evident by the Kniffen family here. This effort will continue. Our coalition, I can't thank them enough for all the work that they're doing. I want to invite all of you to the press conference that we're going to be having with our partners at Adventist Health on February 18th, located at 1524 27th Street at 10 a.m., and we'll continue to spread the word of safe surrender. It's an important law. It saves lives, and I can't thank you enough for making this proclamation.
Well, Lito, I want to thank you and your team for all the important work you guys are doing. I mean, it's just incredible. I mean, it's so impactful for our community, and I can't thank you guys enough. And I don't think we do a Best Dressed award in here, but I think Oliver would win for sure if we were. You're looking sharp, buddy. Okay, the board will now consider item number 6, which is public presentations. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons to address the board on any matter not on this agenda, but under the jurisdiction of the board. Board members may respond briefly to statements made or questions posed. They may ask questions for clarification, make referral to staff for factual information, or request staff to report back to the board at a later meeting. Also, the board may take action to direct staff to place a matter of business on a future agenda. And after, I think, some confusion in our last meeting, I want to remind folks that for all comments, speakers are limited to 2 minutes, and we ask that you please state and spell your name before your presentation. All right. Welcome, Dennis.
Dennis McLean, MC, capital L-E-A-N. Good morning, Chairman Peters, board members, and staff. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'd like to thank your board and our group for their efforts in improving our election department. Splitting the existing office and replacing the ROV will improve the transparency in this department, which has been non-existent for decades. Wasteful spending and lack of public trust in the current elected position has led to its demise. This action will create accountability and control for your board and hopefully more truthful interaction with the public. We are looking forward to the selection process of a new ROV, as we will continue to supply your board with truthful information to make our county election department a more accurate representation of qualified voters in Kern County. Our goal, which has always been and will continue to be, free and fair elections for all Kern citizens. Thank you.
Thank you.
Glenn Clayton, C-L-A-Y-T-O-N. Thank you, board. Thank you, Chairman Peters and staff, and for all that you do. Our state constitution states in Article 2, Section 2.5, a voter who casts a vote in an election in accordance with the laws of this state shall have that vote counted. Section 7 states voting shall be secret, but the counting of those secret votes cannot be counted in secret. Our current ROV and election staff cannot verify if the votes are being tabulated correctly, since they are not allowed into our own voting system. They do not have the system software code. Sacramento keeps this to themselves. Therefore, our county must take Dominion's reported totals as accurate. In my opinion, this is a vulnerability. You may recall I reported on this in 2023 and 2024. My wish for my future ROV is to work together with County Council and other local leadership and citizens to contact our Secretary of State and request that they share the 4 items Sacramento has and Kern County does not have. These items are the following: passwords, software source code, cabinet keys, and access support for our elections department. That's training support. To verify our own voting systems totals. Without them, we will need to hand count the ballots, which is supported by years of efficiency, trustworthiness, and results at the end of an election day. As a concerned citizen, I pray for God's grace, oversight, and direction for our Office of ROV and staff, that He strengthens any weaknesses and vulnerabilities to rebuild trust in its outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chairman Peters. Good morning, Vice Chair, and the supervisors and staff. I am Charles Shin, retired Marine and a concerned citizen. An important task required by the ROV is maintaining accurate citizen registrations by providing maintenance of current records. These are those who qualify as lawful registrants who reside in a precinct of the county. Citizen inspection and oversight are key in this process. Concerned citizens are being denied access to certain records by the ROV when conducting our reviews. The current hurdle we successfully faced was obtaining inactive records, the current obstacle being canceled records. Here's why it matters. Early February 2024, a presidential election year,
There appeared 54,000 registrations that popped on the website all in one day. Then 3 weeks later, a similarly sized amount was removed. Who knows if the exact same additions were the same removed? We reported this to the Board of Supervisors and ROV, who stated it was an error caused by an old program. Subsequently, in the following months, we witnessed similar increases as reported on Kern Vote website without removal. Question: how is it possible to add multiple tens of thousands of registrations, and where did these records originate? Were these canceled files? I trust the board considers the formidable responsibility needed by the ROV to troubleshoot and solve problems. Our group continues to request canceled records, including voter histories, to catch mysterious caches of thousands of voters randomly appearing from old programs. We appreciate the board's attention and concern for correcting deficiencies. Nothing we do is more important than promoting transparency for honest, accurate elections by citizens qualified as registrants. Every lawfully cast vote accurately counted. Concerned citizen support is evident by providing direct insight into election mechanisms, anomalies, and an asset for our next ROV. Thank you.
Thank you.
Morning, board, staff.
Morning.
My name is Andy Hensel, Hensel. So we're looking for a new register of voters with the qualities we need and without the characteristics that have failed us in the past. And not to dwell on the past, but let's revisit a problem that occurred January 23rd, 2024, when Supervisor Couch asked Ms. Espinoza for the approximate number of voter cancellations there had been in the past year. She had no answer. He then asked her to produce a simple 5-year report of removals by year. But her reply took 13 months, during which time one began to wonder if any voters had been deleted. Now, delegating work assignments to others may be a management style, but we would hope that the new ROV would be more of a hands-on person, and that with only one job to do, he or she would be able to answer simple questions. The ROV of Shasta County is just this type of hands-on person. He has devised and published a new way to view and record all mail-in ballots by using video cameras. The system captures every ballot before, during, and after tabulation, effectively removing any doubt about the count. His organizational skills are most apparent, and he welcomes election workers with comfortable chairs that are actually close enough to see what you're trying to observe. He exudes transparency, and this Democrat seems to know a few things. That's right. He's passionate about fair elections as a way to save what's good and compassionate about his party. And he knows that his employers are the constituents of his county, not the Secretary of State. This is the kind of ROV with the principles and the skills that we should be looking for. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers?
Thank you. My name's Samuel Hardman. I live in Tehachapi. My name's spelled Samuel Hardman. Thank you for giving me this time up here. I have some documents that I'd like to give to you all. It has to do with actions that local governments are taking. Here, sorry. Local governments are taking to slow down, resist, or stop detention centers from being developed in their communities. And this information was printed out last year in a report, so hopefully it will be informative to you. The idea that the reason I'm talking about this is we have a criminal organization operating on the other side of the mountains here. That criminal organization is Core Civic. They have no permit, they have no license, and they're keeping people detained against their rights that this government provides. And therefore, they should be shut down. They can't pass an inspection. That's why they put them off. It wouldn't happen. If it was a mom and pop liquor store, you'd shut it down in a heartbeat. So the only reason they're getting away with it is because they have lots of money to fold into the community. That's my thinking. The only reason I can see, if you look at ICE and what it's doing in this country, it's just a shame. Taking our rights away. Arresting 5-year-old kids because they're the worst of the worst? Give me a break. These kids in school are not doing anything wrong. We need to relook at this whole situation, and it's got to start local. You've got to look at the detention centers that exist in this community and try to stop them. You know, if they were really arresting the worst of the worst, there would be a long rap sheet next to every name that they arrested. And you can't find the names of the people they're arresting. They're hiding it. So anyway, y'all have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
I have some copies for you. Good morning, Board of Supervisors. My name is Nadine Escalante, ESC. Hold on. The rest of the stack. ESCALANTE. This morning, I'm providing you with some copies of some upsetting situation that happened with me. I enrolled with Kern County Community Doula Training. The instructor is Denisha Danny Wallace, who's a local doula. This training is free through the county from the grant that you received to address the infant mortality rates here in Kern County. During this time in this training, we were given an NDA. You guys have a copy of the NDA, but unfortunately, you can't read it because she disabled it. You're not allowed to give people an NDA using state or county funds. This is somebody that is getting a contract with the county who does not know what people's rights are. When I asserted my right to have my NDA reviewed by my attorney, Mr. Rodriguez and Joel Andreessen, she kicked me out. She retaliated against me. So I have filed a complaint with the California Civil Rights Division as I was told to do by my attorney, Joel Andreessen. I'm bringing this to your attention because this is my tax dollars. This is my friends' tax dollars. This is the community's tax dollars. We do not need people in the community who are misusing funds and giving people NDAs that are telling them you will be terminated if you do something that I don't like. That is against the law. And then also under SB 133, me standing here and talking about discrimination, retaliation, gives her she can't do anything with this NDA. And when she talked about in this NDA, the confidentiality and the intellectual property, the books can be bought on Amazon. The training materials is the materials of the instructors. None of it is her own intellectual property. This woman is misrepresenting the county and not being forthright, especially with our most vulnerable population, pregnant women and children. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker, please.
Hi, good morning, Board. My name is Thomasina Rivers, Tomasena, last name Rivers, Rivers. Here today for the community. I didn't do it. You saw it. I didn't do it. I'm just sorry. I just want to make a joke. Okay. I'm super excited how everyone is talking about the voting and how our funds are being misused or misplaced. I mean, take a look around. You might not know it, but I mean, Bakersfield's already under review for fraud, waste, and abuse, which is super awesome. Second of all, Mr. Newsom may not be doing what he's supposed to do or help us in the right factual way, but you guys are like our avengers. You guys can force him and help our community. I'm here to also say, I heard someone say something about a sanctuary county. I'm here to say if anything like that happens, that the responsibility would have to be yours. That's child endangerment. That's causing more problems for our community. We're already fighting, trying to make it better. So don't do that. Please don't do that. I'm just suggesting so. And second of all, another thing that I've noticed were the small homes there in Oildale. And as someone who has recovered from addiction and more into that, but I don't have enough time for that, the small homes are not going to help homeless people. Sorry, buying hotels are not going to help homeless people. And if you have friends or you've been around someone who's made it through addiction, you need a facility. You need a facility where they can live and have mental health and also other programs that'll help them. I did learn one thing about being incarcerated is that I learned how to make my bed. I learned how to do chores with other people, and that helped me become somewhat of who I am today. So if you guys haven't looked into it, think about building a facility for these people that can go there and get mental health services, be fed, the children can get help, because putting them in single homes and hotels, all it's going to do is continue to have more drugs. They're going to be able to rob people, go back to that hotel. It's really not working out. So I don't know if anybody is interested in that, but building a facility for these people would be a great idea, because then you can say, hey, homeless, you're either going to come here or you're going to have to do this. But I know we can't keep this on our streets, so please help the county. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Our next speaker, please. Okay, seeing no more speakers under public presentations, we'll move to item number 8, and that's board member announcements or reports. Any comments from the board? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to item number 17, and that's a mid-year status report for fiscal year 25-26 and proposed mid-year budget adjustments. And for that, I will call on our CAO, Nancy Anderson.
Mr. Chairman and members of the board, today we actually have 3 items that are related to the budget. The first one you're going to hear is about the status of the current year budget. The second item will be related to the projections and forecasts for the next fiscal year budget. And the third item provides information on the transient occupancy tax revenue that was requested in a previous budget discussion. So now I will turn it over to our Assistant CAO, Elsa Martinez, to provide the mid-year update.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Today we are presenting the mid-year status report on the fiscal year 25-26 county budget, covering the period of July 1st through December 31st, 2025. This report provides an update from the first quarter report we presented to your board in November, and also provides details on the county's fiscal position at the midpoint of the fiscal year. The purpose of this mid-year report is to inform the board, county leadership, and the public about the current status of the budget. In addition, the report identifies recommended budgetary adjustment needed to address departmental requirements and to ensure that sufficient funding and appropriations are available through the end of the current fiscal year. As a reminder, the fiscal year 25-26 budget was adopted by your board on August 26, 2025. The adopted budget provides for total expenditures of $4.5 billion and authorizes 8,669 positions. The budget was balanced through a combination of approximately $4 billion in revenues from state, federal, and transfers, along with $478 million in fund balance, retained earnings, and other one-time funding. While the proposed adjustment maintained a balanced budget, ongoing budgetary challenges, including state and federal actions, and significant cost increases place pressure on the county's fiscal outlook. And departments will have the next 5 months of the fiscal year to prepare for potential fiscal and operational adjustments in the coming fiscal year. As in prior years, the adopted budget will continue to be monitored and adjusted throughout the fiscal year to accommodate changes in operational and fiscal conditions. This mid-year review reflects our best professional judgment at this point of the year, informed by department input, historical trends, and available financial data. Overall, discretionary revenues are tracking slightly above original estimates. Property tax-related revenue are projected to exceed budget by $3.5 million, or close to 1%, consistent with the final billing completed in November. Additionally, one-time sales and use taxes and impact fees associated with large-scale solar projects are contributing to an additional $2.5 million. In total, discretionary revenues are projected to be $6.2 million, or 1.07% above the original estimate. And for reference, last year our estimate was $20 million above the budget, so we are seeing a slight decrease already. A significant source of our budget is realignment and Proposition 172. With the exception of certain law enforcement funds, most realignment funding replaced state general fund dollars and came with existing case loads and costs tied to realigned program. This was not new revenue. Growth in realignment funding is typically one-time in nature as it fluctuates with statewide sales tax and vehicle license fees. Therefore, growth funding is not guaranteed. The growth funds have been instrumental in offsetting cost increases, and as we will later discuss in this report, programs such as adoption and foster care are experiencing increased demand. And these programs, over which your board have no authority to reduce or eliminate, will require these additional resources. Any amounts collected above the budget will be used to offset the cost increases. Similarly, Proposition 172 replaced local property tax revenues that were directed by the state to the Education Revenue Augmentation Fund, or ERAF. These funds are used for schools. Proposition 172 funds are essential to maintaining service levels within the public savers departments. Any revenues collected in excess of the budgeted amounts will be used to help offset cost increases in the upcoming fiscal year. So at the midpoint of the year, salaries and benefits expenditures are tracking at 44.8% of the adjusted annual budget, compared to 49.5% at the same point last year. This variance is primarily attributable to the transition to the county's new financial system. Payroll postings that were previously automated are now being processed manually, resulting in timing delays. In addition, workmen's compensation and unemployment charges were not posted until after December 31st, further attributing to lower year-to-date costs. Recruiting efforts remain on maintaining critical service across county departments. At the same time, departments have been encouraged to exercise caution when filling vacancies to preserve financial flexibility and sustainability. Thoughtful hiring decisions will help departments better prepare for next fiscal year when increased costs are anticipated. Expenditures for services and supplies are currently tracking at 31.2% of total adjusted appropriations, compared to 37.1% last year. Historically, spending in this category accelerates in the second half of the fiscal year. Many departments delay purchases earlier in the year to ensure that sufficient resources will be available to address emerging priorities. Most departments are projecting that they will close the fiscal year within their approved budgets. However, 5 departments are projecting combined deficits totaling approximately $20.1 million. The largest variances are in the Department of Human Services and Public Works, with additional deficits in utilities, indigent defense, and general services. These variances are primarily driven by higher service demand, inflation, aging infrastructure, weather-related utility costs, and increased social services caseload. In order to address the deficits and ensure departments have sufficient appropriations to end the fiscal year without a deficit, we recommend mid-year adjustment totaling $34 million. These adjustments are funded in part by the $6.2 million in additional discretionary revenue and $27 million in state and federal revenue. The recommended changes address increased costs in utilities, indigent defense, facility maintenance, as well as support election costs, probation staffing, and workforce training programs. Next slide. County policy requires departments to notify our office and the board when revenue sources were not realized. Currently, approximately $37 million in unrealized revenue within the Department of Human Services exists. This amount does not represent a reduction in funding from the state or federal government. It's just a rebalancing of the budget as the department has filed their second quarter cost report, and a clear picture of anticipated costs for the fiscal year are reflected. In addition to these changes, the mid-year report also includes transfers of appropriations to other departments that are already budgeted to reimburse for example, for Sheriff's Office academic costs that were included in the Sheriff budget, but funds were set aside to reimburse the department when the cost is incurred. A $19.6 million correction is also included for the roads fund associated with a duplication of contract encumbrances that were carried from last fiscal year. These transactions do not increase spending authority for the departments. As I mentioned, the fiscal year 25-26 adopted budget authorized 8,669 positions. Recommended mid-year position changes include the deletion of 11 positions and the addition of 65 positions, resulting in a net increase of 54 positions in the county budget. Most deletions remove vacant or unfunded positions, while most additions are funded by state and federal sources or replace the use of extra help staffing. Details are included in Attachment B of the report. As we continue to monitor the budget, it is important to recognize that federal policy remains in a state of ongoing change, with anticipated downstream impacts at the state and local level. Looking ahead to the next 5 months, these uncertainties present potential risks to funding stability. The coming months will be critical for preparing for the next fiscal year and positioning the county to manage future challenges while protecting essential services for our community. Today, the recommended action for your board is to receive and file the report, authorize the auditor controller to process the proposed budgetary actions, and approve the addition and deletion of positions as summarized in Attachment B. Your board should refer the matter to the Human Resources Department to amend departmental position and salary schedule. This concludes my prepared remarks, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Martinez. Any questions from the board before we go to public comment? Okay, seeing none, are there any matters of the public that would like to comment on this item? Okay, not seeing any, so I will bring it back to the board for any more comments or a motion.
Motion on the mid-year status report for fiscal year 25-26.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. All ayes.
Okay, thank you. Our next item is number 18, the fiscal year 26-27 budget development report and proposed general fund contribution guidelines, and I'll turn it back over to our CAO, Nancy Anderson.
Mr. Chairman and members of the board, as mentioned, this item focuses on what we are projecting for next fiscal year so that the departments can begin planning and preparing for budget development. This includes the budget development report and the net general fund contribution guideline. Today's presentation will walk through the key components shaping the development of the fiscal year 26-27 budget. We will begin with an overview of the budget development report, followed by the county's update on financial forecast. Then we will outline the budget balancing framework that guides our approach to addressing fiscal challenges. We will also review the major fiscal issues currently under evaluation and conclude with the next steps in the budget process as we move towards final recommendations. The big picture, unfortunately, is riddled with challenges and uncertainties as we enter fiscal year 26-27 in a structurally constrained fiscal environment. Federal and state policy actions predominantly related to H.R. 1 are resulting in significant cost increases for the county while reducing services for our safety net population. Focusing on our local resources, we also will be challenged as discretionary revenue growth remains flat with the cost of doing business continuing to grow, which is resulting in a $14 million deficit for next year. Fiscal uncertainty is further exacerbated as assistance from the governor's budget does not appear imminent for counties as the state grapples with its own resource challenges and limited capacity. As we all know, Kern has been here before. Your board's prudent fiscal policy and long-term fiscal strategic planning has placed us in a much better position than many other counties to be able to pivot and adapt to our reality. My staff and departments will work diligently together to prepare for what is coming. And we're not alone. Across the state, our county peers are already echoing what we will be presenting today. I'd now like to turn it over to Assistant CAO Elsa Martinez for the presentation.
As Ms. Anderson indicated, we are beginning the annual budget process for fiscal year 26-27. As outlined here, there are multiple opportunities for the public to provide input throughout the process. At each stage, budget estimates will be updated as conditions and expectations evolve. After departments submit their requested budget to our office in March, we will return to your board and the public at the following key points. May 19, 2026, we will present the budget priority discussion following the release of the governor's May revision. June 30, 2026, we will conduct budget hearings. Historically, a preliminary budget was presented at this time, with final budget adoption occurring in August. Adopting the budget early allows departments to plan more effectively, as many changes associated with an August adoption were not implemented until the fall. This change does not limit your board's authority to amend the budget. As in prior years, we will return in early August to provide both the board and the public an opportunity to provide further input once final year information is available. This includes final assessed values, which determine available property tax revenue, and year-end balances representing prior year underspending that may be allocated to departments or applied to one-time costs such as projects. As we begin development of the budget for the coming year, we will review 4 areas: state and federal actions, the county's assessed valuation, property tax revenue, and other discretionary revenue, known and measurable changes in program costs and revenue, and the status of the current year budget and the projected year-end fund balance. Not shown in this slide is the economic outlook. At this stage of the budget process, we have completed the general fund financial forecast, and it's important to understand the factors influencing the budget decisions as we move forward. Now, Alex Alba will provide a high-level overview of the key factors used in developing the proposed budget guidelines for your board's consideration.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Today I'm going to start with our largest discretionary revenue source, property tax. After discussion with the assessor, we are using a projected increase of only 0.88% increase valuation for next year's budget development. Residential and commercial properties on the secure roll are expected to increase a modest 2.5% in assessed value. Senate Bill 237 has prompted renewed oil permitting activity in California. However, any resulting growth in property tax revenue will take time to materialize. Even with permits now being issued, the creation of new taxable value will lag. In addition, it's anticipated that the price per barrel used for valuation will be lower than last year. All that combined together, we're projecting a decline of 15% in oil and gas value for 26-27. This graph is similar to the graph that we have presented before. However, it does include a growth line there in the dotted line, and that shows a decrease in that growth. That while there's a bit of good news that I'll share today. It's brief. There is growth. However, that growth is declining. You see it in 2022, at 10%, declining to 6.8, 3.3, 2.6, and now estimated lower than 1%. Not just property tax, however, our other discretionary revenue sources are also flatlining. This graph here highlights the county's other major discretionary revenue sources. Sales and use tax is our second largest discretionary revenue stream. Different from a property tax, this one is volatile, making this one is about 27% of our discretionary revenue, and most of our sales tax come from business industries as well as fuel and service stations. Over time, we have seen a modest growth, including a noticeable bump there in 23-24 and 24-25. That was with Measure K introduction, and in 24-25, there was a correction of 20 million. However, that was a one-time, and you see it start flattening out 25-26 and 26-27. Other revenue, that includes our interest earnings from our county's cash balance, and it also includes our countywide cost allocation plan. The Federal Reserve reduced the federal fund rate 3 times last year, so we're expected to have a decrease in our interest earnings. We budgeted cautiously at an amount of 12.6, which is a decrease. Overall, all things combined, overall discretionary revenue is only projected to increase 8.9 million compared to 25-26. This growth is driven by the 3 components which I mentioned: 4.9 million in property tax, second sales tax 3.1 million, and then other revenue of 1 million. Taken together, that equates to the 8.9 million total you see here in increase. Our cost increases. So to the right here in red, you'll see all the cost increases. To the left, you see in green decreases. A lot more increases than there is decreases. For 26-27, we're seeing a number of significant ongoing cost increases across the county. Those reflect a combination of rising operational expenses, mandated program costs, and employee salaries. One of the largest drivers in this increase is an increase of 6.9 million in our health benefits. That's due to medical premiums, higher utilization. We're self-insured, so we are feeling those pressures of those high increases. We also have a 3.8 million increase in your salary costs there on the top, reflecting different step increases. Costs tied to mandated programs are also rising. Your general assistance, foster care, adoptions are anticipated to increase approximately 3.47 million. And the administrative cost shift, so HR1 created a cost shift from the Fed to the states and the county. That's anticipated to be 4.1 million in 26-27. In addition, the expiration of the ARPA funding, that contributes to approximately 3 million in increases. Those costs, if maintained, will shift those costs now to the general fund. We're also absorbing requirements of increases for SB 525. On this chart here, you only see those for public health. BHRS is having to deal with those, but on this graph, the 446 is only for public health. We're also seeing an increase next year for workers' comp and general liability as those continue to climb. Our insurance premium, but also the payout of the claims. There is one positive, again, to the left, down at the bottom. We do see a meaningful savings from retirement expenses. That's projected an increase of 7.26, providing some relief against those other cost pressures. However, this reduction does not offset all the additional increases we're seeing elsewhere. This is a chart of our salary and benefit costs, and it's broken down by different components of your personal related costs. At the bottom there, you'll see your salaries. That's steadily inclining. Above that, you'll see your retirement, and you'll see that one decline in 25-26 and estimated for 26-27. You'll also see your health benefit increasing, and then a much smaller portion, but still impacts our total cost is other, which includes workers' comp and unemployment. you'll see that salaries and benefits has grown, that salaries by itself has grown from 587 million in 21-22 to 859 million in 26-27. This chart is a little different, but it does provide and paint a picture for our framework and our rebalancing and adjustments that need to be made. When we look at the county's long-term fiscal outlook, an important trend to understand is the relationship between our revenue growth and our cost growth, specifically the growth in our salaries and benefit, which is the largest section of our costs in the general fund. If we start with property tax, they're in blue, our largest discretionary revenue, which I discussed, you can see a clear pattern of the growth over the previous year's decline. It's like a stairs declining steadily. You'll see the drop from 10.7, 6.8, 3.3, 2.6, and flat next year at the less than 1%. If you compare that with growth in salaries and benefits, which makes up our majority operating cost. Over that same period, salaries and benefits grew by 8%, 9%, and then 8%, 5%. It is declining, not at that same rate. What it shows is that even though the growth rate for salaries and benefits is beginning to slow, it's still constantly higher than growth rate of our property tax. And that gap between the two is widening as you get to the outer years. This imbalance creates a long-term structural pressure on the budget. When revenue growth slows faster than cost growth, it becomes increasingly difficult to maintain service levels without identifying new revenues or reducing cost or both. Understanding this trend is critical for the years ahead, and as we plan for careful financial planning, cost management, and our strategic decision-making will be essential to maintaining a fiscal stability. So this is our general fund forecast. There's a lot of numbers here that are included. It's included as part of the staff report. So if you can't see that, I apologize, but it is included in the staff report. The general fund fiscal forecast shows that revenue is not keeping pace. You'll see that at the top. It's not keeping pace for 26-27 revenue. There's only an increase of 8.9, with costs increasing nearly 23 million. As we move to the right, you can see the trend does not change. Costs continue to increase, and it continues to outpace revenue growth. Each year's annual deficit will need to be mitigated through multi-year fiscal planning, which may include the temporary use of reserves and cost reductions through a department budget, general fund step-downs. For fiscal year 26-27, you'll see the annual deficit there in red, 14 million, 7 million down at the bottom. We're offsetting with designations, which leaves a remaining amount of 6.5 million that will need to be absorbed by departments. For 26-27, we're facing significant pressures on our costs. Several major drivers contribute to this. Retirement costs are decreasing slightly, but the relief is offset by our pension obligation bond costs, the step increases, higher expenses in workers' comp, general liability, utility costs. We're also seeing increases to our mandated programs, including general assistance, foster care, and adoptions, as well as now the administrative cost shift to for SNAP under HR 1. Health benefits is increasing sharply in the fiscal year, and then SB 525. On top of that, we have ARPA funding that's being phased out. Altogether, this results in a cost increase of, they're at the bottom of 23 million. Moving to 27-28, some of those same pressures continue. Several pressures will remain elevated, including workers' comp, general liability, and your mandated social services programs. The net result for the following year is 21.5 million. In 28-29, we see a temporary relief. There is a brief gasp that we can take. It's those POB payments that are dropping off significantly, creating a one-year reduction in cost pressure. So that results in overall a 4.9 million savings. So, however, if you look at if you keep going on that graph, you'll see that next year, 29-30, the costs begin to rise again. Increase in workers' comp and general liability, mandated programs, leading to a total increase there of 11.5 million. When we compare these costs to our projected revenue growth, the picture's pretty clear. In the first 2 years, 26, 27, 27, 28, we face annual deficits of 14 million and 14.5. There's temporary relief in the following year in 28, 29. But for 29, 30, we return back to the deficit of 3 million. Altogether, this results in a projected deficit of 18.3 million for 29, 30. These figures underscore the importance of our planning and the need to carefully manage both our revenue and our cost pressures as we move forward. As we look ahead, one of the most significant challenges we have is looking at the reduction in our ARPA funding. These are the programs that are currently being funded with ARPA, and we must look to either reduce these costs or find another revenue source. Some of the programs include your litter abatement, rapid response, safe camping, Hope on Heart, and the extended hours for library. If ARPA funding has allowed us to keep most, if not all, our libraries open 5 days a week, offering extended program and services. The deadline to use these ARPA funds is December of 2026. Most of these programs only have enough funding to operate through that date. Without replacement of the funding, they will not be able to continue. One of the biggest challenges we have is on the Human Services Department and the impacts of HR 1, which introduces significant shifts to counties across the state. These challenges and changes affect core safety net programs, and financial implications grow substantially over time. The first impact, administrative cost shift, which requires counties to absorb that 22.5% of administrative costs. For Kern County, that begins with 4.4 million in 26-27 and increases steadily to 6.5 by fiscal year 2030-31. This part, that 22.5%, is the only component that has been incorporated in our current forecast. The second major component is that Medicaid, Medi-Cal work and community engagement requirement, which adds new administrative responsibilities. These costs begin at 2.5 in 26-27, and then 5 million in 27-28, and then level off to about 3 million thereafter. You look at the bottom of the bottom row, that's the most significant cost exposure we have for the county. It's the SNAP benefit cost sharing tied to our error rate. Beginning in 27-28, counties would be responsible for millions of dollars annually. For Kern County, that projected exposure is 54 million in 27-28, increasing to 72 million every year thereafter. When you add all these components together, the potential impact of HR 1 could be from 6.6 million in 26-27 to 81 million in 2030. It's important, again, to emphasize that SNAP administration cost shift has been included as part of our countywide fiscal forecast. The much larger potential projections, because of the sheer magnitude and size of it, its cost could create significant pressures on the county's general fund and could require significant programmatic or budgetary adjustments. Understanding the scale and the timing of these impacts our forecast and our planning ahead for the future. If that wasn't enough bad news, there's more. There's stuff that we're still having to review and look at, right? So as we look beyond those cost pressures, we have to look at homeless housing assistance prevention program. We're anticipated to lose 1.5 million in reduction in that program. That has been critical source for our homeless response system, and losing this level of funding will directly affect our ability to maintain those current levels. Next, you'll look at in-home supportive services. There's a proposal to eliminate the state share of that IHSS cost growth, and which is deeply concerning because that shift will directly be shifted to the county. Kern County serves approximately 18,000 IHSS recipients. If the county was required to absorb the cost of just one additional hour, our general fund cost would increase by approximately 3.8 million annually. We're also going through with Proposition 36, which we've seen increases. While the state provided a one-time allocation of 50 million in 2025, the counties have not received sustained funding needed to support caseloads across probation, behavioral health, indigent defense, district attorney, and the sheriff's office. Another concern that's here on this slide is AB 1383. That proposes to adjust pension formulas that would roll back key PEPRA reforms. For Kern County, this could increase annual costs by estimated $13 million at a time where we're already facing a lot of economic uncertainty, significant state and federal funding reductions. All this is occurring again against a backdrop of broader economic uncertainty, including a decline or a slowing of revenue growth, inflationary pressures, and the upcoming May revise, which may introduce additional state budget cuts. We are also evaluating the potential increase in indigent care costs, which could further the impact to the general fund. Taken together, these changes in policies represent substantial fiscal risk. They underscore the importance of our long-term planning, state advocacy at the state level, and a clear understanding how these external pressures will shape the county's financial future. So without all that provided, what do we do and how do we realign or structurally balance and balance the budget as we move forward? Well, as we prepare for these challenges in front of us, it's important to outline the framework that we'll be using to balance the budget in a responsible, strategic way. This framework focuses on 4 core areas: controlling the costs, increasing revenue, prioritizing essential services, and planning for long-term stability. First, we have to continue to control costs. You heard Ms. Martinez earlier talking about the vacancies and backfilling the positions. We have to continue looking at those hard look at funded vacancies, overtime usage, contracts, and interim funding shifts. We'll also explore additional opportunities within realignment flexibility that does allow us to transfer between realignment sub-accounts when appropriate. In addition, we'll work to maintain those guideline level for the prior, for 26-27, and then conducting some stress testing. What we're gonna ask departments to do is do a step down of 5% to help us understand how the department would operate under those reduced funding. That review helps us identify realistic reduction scenarios if they're necessary. Second, we'll look for ways to increase revenue. You'll hear a presentation later today by Jason Wiebe from the County Administrative Office on TOT, our transient occupancy tax, and what that revenue and those changes would mean to our general fund. And then we're also asking departments to aggressively pursue any grants. General Services did this several years ago, and they benefited from those grant funds to help us with our parks and improvements in those areas. Every additional dollar we bring will help us reduce that pressure on the general fund. Third, we're going to prioritize our essential services. This means identifying the programs, the functions that are absolutely critical to public safety, public health, and our core county operations. As we evaluate reductions, we have to ensure that those essential services remain protected. At the same time, we'll begin to develop a 3 to 5 year mitigation plan to help us navigate those reductions in a thoughtful, phased manner rather than abrupt cuts. Finally, the framework positions us to make informed decisions in a time of economic uncertainty. By controlling the costs, strengthening our revenue, protecting essential services, and planning ahead, we can maintain stability even as the state and federal funding continues to evolve. This balanced approach helps us remain active, strategic, and focused on our long-term fiscal health. So key takeaways today, and what brings the major themes together and paint a picture of our fiscal environment we're trying to navigate through is that we're seeing moderate revenue growth, and it's not keeping pace with our rising costs of our salaries or our benefits and our operational pressures. This widening gap is at the core of a long-term budget challenge. For 26-27, we're mitigating that 22.9 general fund cost increase through a combination of 8.9 million in that revenue growth, a one-time reduction in retirement costs, 7.4 million in designation use, and departments are having to absorb a 6.5 million in additional costs. But these solutions are short-term. We know that one-time funds will be needed to bridge future gaps unless structural changes occur. At the same time, state mandated requirements continue to place additional pressures on county programs, often without corresponding revenues. These mandated programs combined with our slow revenue growth create a structural imbalance that becomes harder to manage each year. Layered on top of this is economic uncertainty, both state and nationally. The state's fiscal outlook remains volatile, and the upcoming May revise may introduce further reductions or cost shifts. At the federal level, uncertainty around major policy changes create significant operational challenges for department that rely on stable funding to deliver essential services. Taken together, these factors underscore the importance of our disciplined financial planning, strategic prioritization, and long-term approach to maintaining stability. While these challenges are significant, today's discussion lays the groundwork for the decisions we will need to make in the months ahead. And I'd like to end with this slide. As we move into the next phase of our budget development process, it's important to recognize how those general fund resources are allocated and why the guideline for coming fiscal year recommends that departments maintain budgets at the current levels. When we look at the distribution of the general fund, the picture is clear. The majority of our general fund supports public safety. Given the modest growth in discretionary revenue and significant cost pressures we've discussed today, the guideline recommends that the departments hold budgets at the current year levels. This approach provides a realistic, responsible framework, developing a balanced recommended budget for the upcoming fiscal year. To support this process, we are holding our annual budget kickoff meeting later this week, and these sessions will give the department heads, their team, more detailed guidance on the budget parameters, expectations, procedures for the year ahead. This will also provide an opportunity to clarify questions and ensure the department is equipped to build a budget that aligns with our fiscal realities. I want to say thank you to the board, thank you to the department. This is a difficult time, but we can get through it together. These challenges are real, so I want to say thank you to your board for the attention and engagement as we work through these issues together.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I'll bring it back to the board now for questions or comments. I'll start with Supervisor Flores.
Thank you, Chairman Peters. Thank you for that overview and presentation, and very, very sobering. I did have a question on SNAP and the error rate. So we don't know what the error rate is yet, correct? It's a projection? That 63 to 81 million?
That is correct. That is our best estimate with working with the Department of Human Services, what the error rate is for the state of California and what our impact would be.
And so when will we know with more specificity what it truly is?
We're hoping to have additional information in the May revise. We were hoping to hear it in the governor's proposal. It was not. It was pushed to the May revise. We might not hear about it till the following year, as that error rate impact is not expected to 27, 28, so they might even delay additional information. But we'll bring back any additional information to your board at our next budget meetings. If that is, if we receive additional information, we will bring it back to your board at the additional budget meetings.
Thank you. And then it's my understanding that it's based on a statewide rate, and that's our share.
Supervisor Flores, to the chair, that is correct.
Okay, so no matter what we do, we can do best practice, best error rate. That's still going to be our allotment.
Supervisor Flores, that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Flores. Supervisor Couch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to ask about the SNAP benefits in a minute, but how do the costs of our pension obligation bonds increase in a particular year? Because I just was assuming it was a flat cost.
It doesn't increase. It's already projected. We had 3 pension bonds. The 1995 that got paid off. We have 2. What we call, it's 2 of them. One of them is fixed costs, and one of them has what we call caps. So there's a slight increase in interest as the later year. We already knew about it, so it's not a surprise. We knew it was going to increase as we finish up paying those bonds. So it's not that the interest rate increase. It's just an established increase when the bonds were issued.
And so when do those go away? When are they paid off?
And as you saw in our projection, that is 28, 29. We'll see those, and that's what's upsetting our deficit in that fiscal year.
Both issues of the POBs are gone in that year? And then we have no more after that?
No more pension bonds.
POB, okay. For my benefit, as well as others that might be listening, let's talk about the SNAP benefit cost sharing error rate. I'm gonna start real basic. What is considered an error? There's probably several things that could be an error, but what are they?
And I know our director is here, so I'm gonna start and I'm gonna ask him to come over. It could be both an overpayment and underpayment. It could be that a person did not report their income and they may have qualified for an allowance that is lower. So, but I will defer to the director to give you a little bit more detail.
Good morning. Supervisor Couch, through the chair, Elsa is correct. In essence, an overpayment or underpayment constitutes an error towards our error rate. So how does that occur? Typically, our constituents or clients will provide information as it relates to their income, household, their total composition. We obviously determine that eligibility and also determine an allotment for that eligibility. That's what would be their CalFresh allotment on a monthly basis. And if their income is entered incorrectly by our staff, for example, that would constitute an underpayment or overpayment, depending on how it was entered. Or if a client does not report that income, that could also constitute an error towards the payment error rate.
I'm assuming there are categories that if you are not in compliance with the rules, an applicant for benefits, then, and they get a benefit, that's an error.
That's correct.
Their income's too high, for whatever reason, they're ineligible. Citizenship, because I think that's probably where HR 1 was really aiming, right?
Right. So we apply all those rules and regulations to determine someone's eligibility in the household. And that includes citizenship, how much they're paying in shelter, how much the income of the household is making, and all that gets factored in to determine what their food stamp or CalFresh allotment is on a monthly basis.
So is there an annual or more frequent audit that's done by the state or the feds? I don't know who does that audit.
So we have a state quality control that does a monthly audit of our cases, and then we have an internal quality control as well that does reviews of our cases as well.
So our cost, I've forgotten what the line was, but our costs, typically that was, what was it that used to be a 50-50 split between the state and the federal government? And a portion of the state's cost was the counties. I think it worked out to be around 17%.
That's correct.
And now it's a 75 fed, going forward, it's a 75, 25 state. And so our cost, do we know yet for sure that our cost is going up to, and fill in the blank on the
22%.
20 what?
22%, from 17% to about 22%.
That's a given.
That's a given.
Okay. And then, but that's factored into the other numbers that we already saw. So there's an increase there, even if we have 0 errors, correct?
Right, so there's two things happening. The cost shift, the admin cost shift that's happening, it's happening already, is already set in statute where previously, as you mentioned, it was 50-50, and now it's moving from 25% fed, 75% state and county. And so that additional cost of paying the additional 75% of the share now is about $4 million to the county of Kern. Or in your percentages, it's going up from 17% to 22% now. So that's set in statute. The other thing is related to the payment error rate. That's still in flux. So it's based on the state's current error rate. How that gets distributed amongst the counties is still to be decided. It's based on what the county issues, and again, this is all counties throughout the state, and based on the error rate of the state, that percentage of that error rate gets applied to that total issued amount. So I'll give you a quick example. If your error rate is between 6 to 8%, you pay 5% of the total amount you issued on an annual basis. If it's 8 to 10%, it becomes 10% of what you issue on an annual basis. And if it's above 10%, you pay 15% of what we issue on an annual basis. And we issue in the county of Kern about, just in this county alone, well in excess of $460 million annually.
Say that again, how much?
$460 million annually in CalFresh benefits issued annually. And that is paid primarily with state and federal funds, just to be clear.
Okay, thank you for that.
Sure.
Editorial comment. If the state of California budgeted as prudently and as cautiously as you all do and as we vote for, they'd be able to ease into some of these changes and mitigate some costs on counties like you're trying to do with your plan. So thank you. You've been through this before. I forget what year it was. We had a 4-year structural deficit, but we dealt with it. So it's kind of the same drill all over again, right? Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments from the board? Okay. I'll just jump in and say that I appreciate our county staff and all the work they've done on this budget. I know that there's some difficult times ahead. That kind of Billy Mays comment, but wait, there's more is definitely not something you want to hear when you're getting bad news, but you got to deal with it as it comes. Few questions that I had, and this might be kind of out of the realm of that, but I know we had talked at a meeting a while back about different options that we could look at for saving money in the county moving forward. And one of the things that this board's committee came back with was kind of refocusing on Lean Six Sigma efforts. And I know that before we were doing fairly regular updates as to what kind of savings we were seeing or projects that had been identified. Are we doing that currently, keeping track of those metrics, or are we going to be reporting on what those savings that we're identifying are?
So you are correct, Chairman Peters. There was a big emphasis when we have in 2016, and it kind of during COVID kind of phased out as departments were not training individuals. We started back retraining individuals because those processes really don't save you a lot of cash, but it saves you time. So
Right.
You may be able to do the task with less staff. So that's the goal of Lean Six Sigma. We also, at your request, did a request for qualifications for efficiency audits. So we're in the process of evaluating proposals to kind of look and see if we can have somebody external that can take a look at some programs to kind of look and see if we can do things better. For Lean Six Sigma, we are beginning our training, and then we're going to start those projects to bring back to report to the board. But those are individual departmental efforts. From a county-wide perspective, our cost increases, things that we can control is our workman's comp, our healthcare. We're looking at strategies to see what we can do on those areas. We're seeing a significant increase in our healthcare costs. We've been lucky, and honestly, our consultant tell us all the time that they don't know how we were able to keep our costs contained even after COVID. Well, now it's hitting us. So we're looking at some strategies there. We're looking at workman's comp. What can we do in those areas that are increasing? Our general liability, like what are the strategies that can be done at departments that have those big cases that come to the county that we have to fund? But yeah, definitely we can bring to your board a report on Lean Six Sigma and those efforts.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And one other thing, this would be, I guess, something maybe more to direct to our lobbying team, or maybe back to the legislative program committee, but just making sure that we're really focusing on efforts with our lobbying efforts to engage with our state and federal delegation, but the state in particular, just to make sure that we're really driving home the impact that the state's policies are having on our budgets, because they're significant and have the potential to get extremely significant from what we're seeing. So I just want to make sure that we're focusing on that and making sure that we're making ourselves heard up in Sacramento. And lastly, just as Ms. Martinez mentioned about identifying efficiencies in departments and looking through some of the ARPA funding programs that are going to be expiring at the end of the year. I just kind of want to put out there, I don't have any specific suggestions at the moment, but I know that there's lots of conversations happening around how we address homelessness and do that in a way that's financially sensible, but also general question to staff that we can look at moving forward, but maybe what are some ways that we can look at ways other counties or cities or other municipalities around the state are addressing with it? And is there anything out there that's happening that's working better than what we're doing now? Any best practices out there that we can look at modeling? So just a suggestion, and I think that's all my comments. Supervisor Parlier?
Mr. Chair, I'm just going to layer in on top of what both you and David said. The deficit stars have aligned, not only with HR 1, but with the state. The governor's office says there's a $3 billion deficit. The state legislative analyst office says there's a $18 billion deficit with maybe another 30 to 40 billion of unfunded liabilities. And ARPA monies, Alex laid it out as far as ARPA. ARPA has been basically free money for quite a while, and that is drying up along with other ancillary monies, let's say CDBG, Community Development Block Grants, that's kind of on the fence a little bit too. Now, I see some, county employees in the audience, and, from my perspective, we always want to show our appreciation to our county employees, but we have a fiduciary responsibility too to the taxpayers, and, with these stars aligning, we want to make sure we keep the lights on too. And we function as a government with public safety and all the departments that we have to operate. So this is the first in a ongoing discussion, and I want to thank staff for their presentation. And it's not easy, but that's where we're at, and we're going to get through it like we have in the past. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. Any other comments before I go to the public? Okay, seeing none, are there any members of the public that would like to make comment on this item?
I come from the private sector business, small business for 40 years. And during that period, we had some lean years, and we had to make some major changes. If you don't have the money, you can't make payroll, you can't do insurance, blah, blah, blah. I'd like to see you guys maybe outsource some of your departments into private business. That would mean, you'd save money with the payroll, your insurance, your benefits, and that's just my take there. So I don't know if that's possible with you. I know the government gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and with that comes more taxes, more blah, blah, blah. So if you'd consider that, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Any other public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board for any further discussion or a motion on staff's recommendation.
Motion on staff's
Oh,
recommendation.
I'm sorry, Supervisor Perez, I missed you there.
Thank you. No problem, Chair Peters. Thank you, staff, for your hard work and for all the bad news. What should we, are we able to say anything at this time about what our employees should expect through the negotiation process? Are we allowed to do that legally, ethically? Should we, can we say anything about that at this time?
Supervisor Perez, through the chair, negotiations are discussions with the labor group in a confidential way. So we'll, your board has, will be briefed as a board, so we cannot make comments regarding negotiations. What we can say is, as you saw during the presentation, our employment cost is continuously increasing. So that's a fact. That's not, our employees, perhaps they don't see it in their paycheck, but their healthcare is expensive. Their retirement is expensive. Workman's comp is expensive. So those are the things that we have to manage in addition to the salary. So we'll have a robust conversation with our labor groups and the board regarding coming negotiations.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for your hard work, staff and CEO. Appreciate you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And we had a motion, I believe, from Supervisor Couch. Is there a second?
Second.
Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. All ayes.
Our last item on this morning's agenda is item number 19 under the CAO's office, and it's a report on Kern County's transient occupancy tax.
Mr. Chairman and members of the board, staff is getting seated. This item is being brought back. As you may recall, a question was posed towards staff to bring back additional information regarding the transient occupancy tax revenue that is part of our discretionary resources in the budget. So I will turn this over to Jason Wiebe, who will be making the presentation.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. As Ms. Anderson alluded to, this is some information on transient occupancy tax, or TOT, as I'll refer to it in this presentation, in relationship to other California counties, the city of Bakersfield, and other incorporated cities. Thought it was important first to provide a bit of context. What is TOT? A brief overview. It's generated by visitors who pay the rate when they're staying at any lodging facility for 30 days or less within unincorporated Kern County. The revenue generated from TOT is one of the few sources of unrestricted funding that provides your board the ability to provide services based on county-wide priorities, not state or federal priorities, which could include public safety, law enforcement, animal services, library services, economic development, et cetera. So it is discretionary revenue for your board. As you can see on this next slide, how is TOT collected? It's remitted by hotels and short-term rentals, Airbnb type of rentals that hold a TOT certificate to the treasurer tax collector. Operators are required to obtain an occupancy registration certificate from the treasurer tax collector's office. And in unincorporated Kern, at last count, within a week ago, we had 87 hotel motels that had TOT certificates and 639 short-term vacation rental certificates. So you can see the landscape has probably changed over the last 10, 20 years in terms of who holds those certificates. Now, as far as the comparison goes, Kern County's rate of 6% is well below all comparisons. First of all, the 58 California counties is 9.65% as an average. The 9 San Joaquin Valley counties is at 7.625%. Kern County's 11 incorporated cities is 8.72%. And as the far end of that number, or that table shows, Kern County remains at 6%, which it has since 2002. Now, although revenues do fluctuate due to economic conditions, there is generally a direct correlation between a percentage increase and the percentage collected. An example, if Kern County were to have a 12% rate similar to the city of Bakersfield, you would expect close to an additional $4 million of TOT revenue per year. As you can see, over the last 3 years, we went from $3 million of TOT revenues in 22-23, $3.9 million in 23-24, to about the same $3.8 million in 24-25. Again, I alluded to it earlier. TOT is paid by visitors to Kern County. It's estimated that over 90% of TOT is paid by individuals who do not reside in Kern County. So I think that's important to understand. So I wanted to give your board an idea of where that revenue comes from in terms of communities and regions of the county. Before you get out your calculator, these dollar figures won't add up to the total dollar amount. There's kind of a lag between the dollar figures for a specific location and the total dollar amount for TOT. But it does give your board and the public a sense of where this revenue is being collected. Metro Bakersfield, obviously unincorporated areas of Bakersfield, in 24-25 received that amount. And these are just hotel motel collections. The next slide we'll talk about short-term vacation rentals, which I think, again, kind of shows a changing landscape over the last several years where the majority of revenue comes from these short-term vacation rentals, especially in unincorporated rural communities, mountain communities such as Kern River Valley, the mountain communities of Fraser Park and Pine Mountain Club, Tehachapi and surrounding areas of unincorporated Tehachapi really have a high degree of TOT collections from those short-term vacation rentals. So I did want to provide a little bit of information if your board did want to move forward with considering a ballot measure in the November 26 election ballot. A series of steps is recommended. I wanted to provide that information to your board. First, staff would recommend you do some polling services to determine voter sentiment for a TOT rate increase, considering it will have minimal impact on Kern County residents. We still think it's important to gauge the public opinion for a tax ballot measure. Conduct stakeholder engagement with Kern County's travel and tourism industry, particularly the hotel, motel, lodging industry, as well as the chambers of commerce for all those communities. Take all this information, prepare and present a full report on the results of that data and stakeholder engagement to your board sometime in May of 26, which would allow your board to make an informed decision on whether or not you want to consider an introduction to an ordinance no later than June 16th of this year, which would be required for submission to the registrar of voters for the November 3rd, 2026 general election. So therefore, it is recommended that your board receive and file this report and provide directions to staff. That direction could be do nothing. That direction could be move forward with taking additional steps to investigate further, or anything between, whatever your board so chooses. That concludes my prepared remarks, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you for that presentation. One question I had, do we have a sense of where the TOT dollars that we're collecting now, how they're being spent or where they're being spent? Are they going to more general county issues, or are they going into, attracting more tourism, or the county, or to the areas that are generating it, or do we have a sense of that right now?
My sense is, and Ms. Martinez, if she's still there, can probably answer this better, is they are aligned with our spending priorities for all discretionary revenue, which one of their slides indicated public safety being that. So I think they're closely aligned with our spending priorities. Overall, they're not shifted in any direction one way or another.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I would just add to that, he's correct. It's part of the discretionary, I want to call it total or bucket that we use that gets allocated towards the countywide services that are priority here.
Okay, thank you. And then another question that you may or may not have an answer for right now, but I don't know if there's an existing study out there, or maybe it's something that we could consider, but do we have a sense of what type of impacts an increase in TOT would have on tourism? I know you said we could expect a $4 million increase if we had a 12% rate, but as far as the actual number of visitors are coming here, we have really disparate areas for tourism. Kern River Valley is a whole different individual that's coming to utilize those services up there versus, say the new resort that's coming to the Hard Rock. That's kind of two different segments versus, we got people coming for work out in West Kern that might not be as impacted. So I'm just kind of curious, what a change in a percentage would look like as far as how that would impact our tourist numbers.
Yeah, Supervisor or Chairman Peters, I have done some preliminary research, not too detailed, but in general, there's not much of a macro effect. In other words, economic growth, weather conditions, other things have a bigger impact. So it doesn't have a general impact on travel and tourism, but with any business, it could have an impact on individual businesses based on their competition, location, and other factors on a micro level. But from a macro level, it generally doesn't have any impact, is what I understand.
Okay. All right, thanks for that. Supervisor Parlia?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jason, in the survey, have we done any other large cities, metropolitan areas, Northern California, Southern California?
Not cities as much as counties. We did the incorporated cities of Kern County. I know the city of Fresno is 12%. But in terms of municipalities, not much beyond that. Supervisor Parley, through the chair.
Okay. I agree with what Philip had to say, regarding some of our boutique locations, lodging in the mountains or other remote areas. I don't know if that would have an impact or not, but I mean, all of us travel up here, occasionally through the year, and go to large metropolitan areas usually. And I think it's the Bay Area, somewhere around 14%, I believe. In Southern California, I believe, is probably in the 12% range too. And looking at this chart, I mean, we are willfully underrated compared to all of our sister cities, I'll say, or cities within the county. So I guess my direction is going to be, I'm the one that recommended this item comes before the board. And after the presentation that was just presented to us of all the bad news, and considering, what was the percentage you said again, Jason, from the people that pay for this? It's over 90%, right? I mean, they're out of area residents.
Supervisor Parley, through the chair, it's estimated that over 90% of it is paid by people that reside outside of Kern County, that are visiting Kern County.
Yeah.
So the other 10% would be county residents that are visiting or vacationing within another county spot.
And I don't know if that increase is going to impact somebody's willingness to stay in Kern County. I know, look, I'm not rich beyond any means, but when I go vacation or when I travel, I don't necessarily look at that or use that as a metric that I'm not going to stay there because of their TOT. I usually look at what I'm paying for the motel, hotel. So I guess I'm going to give direction to, and make a motion that we align with staff recommendation. We do the surveying, we just take the next steps and create the partnerships to potentially do something for the ballot. And that is staff recommendation, correct?
That if your board wants to consider a ballot measure, that would be what we recommend.
Okay.
Yes.
That's my motion.
Second.
Thank you. May I?
Yeah, I actually wanted to jump in real quick with a question as well. So just to clarify, Supervisor Parley, is that to go out and engage in polling services, to go that route, or is it more to communicate with chambers of commerce and just kind of get a general sense?
I believe that was a recommendation, both of those was a recommendation, is that correct, Jason?
So what was Supervisor Parley, through the chair, if your board wants to consider placing a ballot measure, polling services and stakeholder engagement, and then prepare that full report in May. So those were the three things if your board wants to consider a ballot measure going forward.
So in essence, I guess I'm recommending both.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Flores?
Okay, thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Supervisor Parley, for this discussion, and thank you, staff, for the treatment and to show us where we're at. I took notice of the Wheeler Ridge numbers. Is that the base of the Grapevine? So if you look at it, it's really neck and neck with the biggest city in Kern County, and I think that even without an increase, it's going to surpass Bakersfield because of the activity with the casino. This might be a good opportunity for the voters to take a second look at this. I know it's been before the electorate before. I don't think there was a good campaign or understanding of what it actually meant, because I think this would benefit the citizens of Kern County, would benefit services. It is directed towards those that visit us, and we're at the bottom of the barrel, and there are times where we don't want to be at the bottom of the barrel. And I think that this warrants further exploration, because this could be very helpful to our county and to economic development and to our general fund.
Thank you, Supervisor Flores. Supervisor Couch.
Thank you, Chairman. Supervisor Flores, I'm going to agree with you. I've got a couple things to say. The last time, and this was a long time ago, this was attempted in Kern County, and one of the reasons it was pulled after it was defeated. By the way, what's the percentage that's needed when it goes on the ballot? Is it only 50% plus one vote? Or what is that?
If it's listed as a general tax, not a dedicated tax toward a specific purpose, yes.
I don't recall if it was general tax or a specific tax in the past that was placed on the ballot. But it didn't pass, and the reason that was given predominantly in the polling after the balloting is that they called it a transient occupancy tax, which is what it's called, and people thought it was a tax on transients, taxing the homeless. So I think we need to be clear, it's the hotel or motel bed tax, often it's called that, but that was what some people thought and voted no. That's point number one. Point number two is it's a question, when or how are you going to develop the polling questions? You're probably going to talk with somebody who does this professionally, tell them what the goal is, and they're going to develop the questions.
Supervisor Couch, through the chair, yes, we're aware of some polling firms that have done this for counties and cities in California, so we will engage them, identify their approach, and see what the best option is for moving forward on that polling.
This may make it a dedicated tax versus a general tax, but if it's possible for us to dedicate a portion of what's raised to the areas that generate it, it might obtain more votes. But I don't know what that portion is, and I don't know what to dedicate it to, but just seeing money come back to your community or your area that you live in or you work in might be an incentive for people to support that. But I don't know what threshold you meet where it becomes a dedicated tax. Anyway, those are my thoughts, and I appreciate Supervisor Parlier bringing it up, and I'll support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Couch. Supervisor Parlier.
Thanks, David. You made me think of a question. So if we get to the point of presenting a ballot measure or presenting it to the board, can you just give us some different alternatives to put recommendations, like David said, into it, maybe give us a couple different versions once we build upon our partnerships and stuff. But if we do get to that point, I'd like to see a couple of different ideas to make sure we're navigating in a positive direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Couch.
Sorry, Chairman, I thought of something that I neglected to mention. Our agreement with Tejon, who doesn't have a hotel yet, but they will, spells out an in lieu tax, I think, for TOT. And I don't know that if this passes, it will impact that. So how do we, my question, you don't have to answer me now, I'm just raising the question of how is that navigated? Can it even be amended? It's probably more difficult than I envisioned, but I'm just wanted to put that on your radar. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second, but before we vote, we're going to go to public comment.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, supervisors, staff. Just some, Charles Shinn, S-H-I-N-N, just some musings from a citizen. We feel like we're sitting in the front row watching a dumpster fire. It's pretty sad, the way the state's being managed. It's like if something exists, California will figure out a way to regulate it. If that something then moves, they'll figure out a way to tax it. And if that thing becomes profitable, California will figure out a way to kill it. Has anybody considered what's going to happen when at 6 cents per mile, or, you know, it could go even higher when that mileage tax kicks in, the ramifications that's going to happen with folks that might come here to spend some money and occupy some locations to reside in while they're here? That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
My name's Samuel Hardman, and it's not one of the reasons why I came down here, but when it comes to this sort of a tax, it seems to me that it benefits the community. It doesn't tax the community, although there will be some ripple effect, I'm sure, but that will be minimal. And people being afraid of the word tax has always bothered me, because that's how we support and provide for our government, is through taxes. So I don't see it as a bad word. Every time I've paid my taxes in the past, I take great pride in it, because I'm supporting this country, I'm supporting these institutions that govern this country. So paying tax is not a bad thing, it's a good thing.
Thank you, sir. Any other public comment? Okay, seeing none, I will bring it back to the board, and I'll just say to Mr. Shin, I share some of your sentiments. I am hesitant about new taxes, but I definitely think, though, that this is different than a lot of ones that we've considered. This is something that I would at least like to get some input from the community on, that has a lot of the tourism, and just see what the general sense is out there. So that being said, I'm going to support at least getting some information as well. Are there any other comments from the rest of the board before we vote? Okay, seeing none, we have a motion and a second. Please cast your vote.
The motion is approved. All ayes.
Okay, thank you. That takes us to the end of our agenda, and having no more items to consider, I will entertain a motion to adjourn to consider item 30 under County Administrative Office and items 31 through 34 under County Council. Thank you. We're adjourned.